Strawweight prospect, Cheyanne Buys. Thank you so much for joining me today. How has life been the last couple of months for you?
Well, thank you for having me. And life the past few months, it's been the same. Like I just been training. My husband and I, we have done nothing this whole quarantine besides just prepare for our fights. I was actually supposed to fight last month, July, so we prepared for this fight since the call, which I got back in February. So last few months have been nothing but a grind.
So pretty much this has been the longest training camp of your career then.
Yeah, by far the longest training camp. I mean, when I got the phone call in February, my coach sat me down. He was like, "Listen, Cheyanne, do not go crazy." And I was like, "Yes, sir, I won't go crazy." But we went crazy. We trained for a long time, as this really is the biggest fight of my life and my husband's life coming up. So
With the training camp being so long and like you said, your coach told you don't go crazy. How do you keep yourself from overtraining, over exhausting yourself?
well, you have to be smart. You have to be really smart. Luckily I have my husband who can sometimes tell me like, "Hey, listen, you're doing too much at this." And we keep each other level-headed with it. Like if I'll tell him, "Hey, listen, you're overtraining your body." As a fighter, I feel like not just us, but any fighter or pro athlete in any sport, they're going to overtrain themselves because that's just what we do. That's all we know is just to train, train, train. So for this camp, we played it really smart. There was definitely times where I got burnt out and I had like to take the weekend off or something. But I mean, if I take more than one day off, my mind plays plays games with me. So we don't really get to take too much time off, but we definitely make our schedule to where it suits our bodies way better and that we're not killing ourselves every day.
Now, before we dive deep into your Contender Series fight, I wanted to talk about your amateur career because you did have an extended career with multiple titles, but you also had some setbacks during that time. How important has that experience been for your pro career?
So my amateur experience, I mean, my very
Yeah.
first amateur fight was probably by far one of my toughest fights to this day. I took my first fight, it was 4 days after my 18th birthday, and I fought a two-time Olympic wrestler. I mean, don't ask me how that fight got set up, but I mean, I took my first fight against a two-time Olympian, let alone that's already hard to get to the UFC level. I mean, look at who's in the UFC that's an Olympic athlete. I mean, for the strawweight, only person I know is Tatiana Suarez. So I mean, for me, that was like a huge fight for me, and that was my very first fight. So I did take a decision loss on that, but after that, I had a few setbacks. I had like 6 losses as an amateur, and they were in the beginning of my career, and it really came from like the wrestling background. I didn't have any wrestling when I first started training MMA. When I first started training MMA, I was strictly taekwondo, kickboxing, and I got into the grappling scene really good. And so when I first started fighting, I was getting matched up with all these girls that would just take me down, hold me down. I wasn't getting finished. I got finished twice as an amateur, and one of them being I injured myself. So that kind of sucked. But, so when I did move to Las Vegas, I moved to Las Vegas back in 2000, I want to say 16 beginning. And since then, I went on a high horse. I started winning all my amateur fights. And my last amateur fight, unfortunately, I was winning my fight, but I ended up dislocating my own elbow in the last like minute of the fight, which my team decided like, "Listen, you looked great. I still think we should go pro." So
Yeah, I wanted to talk about that last fight, the one that where you dislocated your elbow, but you still kept going. What pushed you? You know what I mean? Because most people would look at the arm and be like, "All right, I'm an amateur. Maybe I might stop this and let's move on to the next fight."
it doesn't matter if I'm getting paid to fight or not. I'm a fight, and I think I just have that fighter blood in me. I don't know where it comes from. My family, both my family, my mom and dad, none of them were ever fighters. No one in our family ever was, but I just have something in me that even as an amateur, I'm gonna die in that cage before I quit. It's my pride. It's the only thing that I have going for myself. So for me, when I dislocated my arm, I was mad. I was angry. I was like, "Do not stop this fight." I was like, it's one thing if she was beating me up, but it's another thing if I'm beating her up and she's not landing shots. So for me, it was more of like an anger thing. I was like, "Man, why did my arm have to dislocate?" But it's not the first time it's dislocated my elbow, so like I wasn't like surprised, but I was surprised. I was like, I felt it happen, but I didn't think it dislocated. I
Mm.
was like, okay, I'm on top of her. And I was like, go to punch her. And I went to like try to punch her and my arm went the other way. And then I was like, ooh, I was like, we got a problem. So like I tried disguising it. I tried to make it look to where I was fine. But the referee, Mark Smith, he's a great ref for the UFC also. You know, he's actually someone I'm pretty close to. And he started to notice it and then he stopped it and I looked at him and I was like, Mark, do not stop this. And he was like, Cheyanne, I'm your friend. I gotta stop this. And I was heartbroken to say the least. But I mean, it was probably better off that he
Yeah.
stopped it. But yeah, I wasn't gonna give up, but they forced me out. So
That was already in you before that all happened, then that warrior spirit, you know what I mean? Because you know a lot of fighters, they have doubts in their mind, like, do I have that warrior spirit? If I do get injured, will I be able to pull through? And those moments take them to the next level, but you're already there.
yeah, no, there's no quit in me. There's no quit. I mean, now, I mean, I've already had that in me. I just needed the skill. And I feel like every fight, it's just getting better and better. And that fight was a great fight for me. So, unfortunately, I had to take the loss from doctor stoppage, but it wasn't a loss in my eyes. It actually showed me how really tough I am. And that just carried me higher. Like now I'm a professional. I'm fighting on the Contender series, and I told my husband, I said, listen, I'm willing to die in there. Like I will not leave that cage without winning, and I'm just gonna do everything I can. Like I have 15 minutes, but I always say like I always usually when I fight, I'm like, okay, I have this amount of minutes to beat this girl or whatnot. But this time I'm like, I have 15 minutes to go out there and kill her. Like, I just have that crazy instinct, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. Killer instinct.
Killer instinct, yeah.
Yeah, of course. Now, as a pro, you know, you're 4-1. You know, what do you believe has been your best performance so far?
My best performance so far had to probably be my elbow dislocation. That
Oh,
as an amateur, but as a
yeah,
pro,
yeah.
my best performance yet would probably have to be my debut, only because I finished the girl. But in my eyes, that wasn't my best performance. That's the only time I got the finish. Um, but also my title fight in Canada, I would say that had to be my best performance as I did something that was completely different for my kind of style. So that was a big fight for me considering I went out of my comfort zone and I fought a different style fight.
I went back and watched your debut because of what happened in your last amateur fight, and I was like, man, you were vicious in that fight. Like that girl took a beating for 3 rounds. You know what I mean? Like it was pretty nuts.
I still finished her with 30 seconds left, and so
Yeah.
I was considering I got the finish via elbows because I told my coaches, my striking coach back in the day, I told him, I said, I want to finish this girl with my right elbow, the elbow I dislocated. I was so angry about this arm, and I healed it myself. I didn't have money to get it fixed or anything. I literally taped my elbow up every day to my body, and I went and trained. So for me, it was one of those ego things. I was like, I'm gonna go out there and I'm gonna elbow this girl with my bad arm, and I actually got the finish with my left arm, but I was like, I'll take it.
Exactly. Now, when did you actually get back into the gym to train with, you know, other people?
For this fight, we started back in, I want to say May. Yeah, we started back in May in the gym, and it was very little training groups. So for me and JP, because we had fights, we were in the gym with like people our size, which was only like 3 or 4 max people. But now we're finally full back, like full classes and everything. But it's still, our coach is very, very safe. Like he's like making us get COVID tests every week. He doesn't care how much it costs. He says you better come with that COVID test every week if you want to train. So he's making sure that everyone in that gym is taking precaution because there's so many UFC fighters that can really risk a paycheck for some of us people.
Yeah, some big paychecks there. Now, who are your training partners there at Fortis?
So for our training partners, well, my main sparring partner and training partner for this fight has been my husband. He's been my He's been my everything for this fight. I mean, I can't thank him more than enough. And stylistically, he was great for my opponent. So he's my main. But then I would also say my other main partner, my sparring partner, I have to give credit to my friend Philip. I don't know his last name, but Philip, he's a doctor. He doesn't even fight yet, but he's an animal. And he's been wonderful for this fight. He's my size. So I have Philip, I have my husband, and then I have Miles Johns, who's in the UFC. He's been also a very big help for this fight. I can't thank him enough since quarantine, all that. He's also been wonderful. And we have Macy Kiostin. I think I said her last name right. I have her. And then we have like a bunch of other people that aren't in the UFC or anything. But those have been like my main people. Mainly the three guys. Macy, she's a little bit big, so I only train with her here and there. But I'm mostly with the guys for this fight.
Your upcoming opponent, Hilarie Rose. Thoughts on her and, your breakdown of her skill set.
Okay, so I have a lot about Hilarie Rose. One, I think she's very skillful. I mean, if you watch her, you can tell she has skill. She's more of on the well-rounded side. But if you really break down Hilarie Rose, that's where I like to get into things. I really like to study my opponents. And for Hilarie, I think she's great. She seems sweet. She has skill, but she has not fought anybody. I mean, she's 4-1. She lost her debut to Lindsey Williams, who Lindsey Williams is not going to discredit Lindsey Williams, but Lindsey Williams was also on the losing record side. And I definitely thought that Hilarie was the more well-rounded for that fight. And then after that, she went on and fought all girls except for one girl with losing records. So for me, it was more so, okay, you can look great against somebody that's not good. I watched her last fight was against a girl who was 1-5, who I personally know from watching from back in the day. And I look at the fight and I was like, wow, Hilarie looks wonderful, but anybody can look wonderful fighting someone who's not very good. And so for me, I'm like, what happens when she gets brought into deep waters? You don't know. So for me, I'm excited to see how her fighter instinct comes out. Like, I really want to test her and bring her to where she doesn't want to be, and that's on the feet. If you watch her fights, every time she gets in an exchange on the feet, she'll shoot a takedown. It's obvious what she wants to do. It's obvious where she wants to bring it to the ground. So for me, I have the better fighter IQ. I mean, I'm gonna keep it on the feet. I'm obviously never scared to grapple anybody, but I'm not gonna give her what she wants. She has to take me to the ground, which I'm no easy person to take to the ground. So I'm really just pumped. I'm really anxious. I'm obviously like 2 weeks out, so I'm getting in like that killer instinct mode right now. So, but yeah, I think she's great. I'm excited to give her a hug after the fight, but until then, I want to rip her head off. So.
Have you watched the Contender series this year so far, the first week? Did you watch it?
I was actually at practice last night, but I did get to watch the first fight, and it was right before my final sparring. So, I mean, I was hyped up. I was watching the first fight, and the guy got the first round finish, and I just looked at my husband, and I was like, whew, I'm ready to spar tonight. And I actually had, like, the best sparring I've ever had, so that was really nice. It was a nice way to finish my fight camp and, go into now it's just getting the weight down, which the weight's perfect. Weight's actually too good. I'm still eating full meals. I'm fully hydrated. I'm the best shape I've ever been in. So now for the next 13 days or 12 days till weigh-ins, I'm just chilling. Now I finished this week off with some hard training, but nothing too much. My coach is really careful with me. He's careful with everybody, but because I'm the first one up next week or a week and a half, he's just making sure it's just the finishing touches of the camp. So I'm really happy. It's been a long time coming for this fight, and I just want to put my hands on her finally.
I heard you're a good chef. I heard you can cook really well.
Yeah. Who told you that? My husband?
Yeah.
Yeah, I love cooking for that man. He loves food, so it's nice. I always get to cook for him. But I've been cooking for a long time, yeah. It's just something I also enjoy. I'm not no fine dine chef, but I definitely try to be. I'm self-taught. My mom did teach me when I was young, but when I moved out at 18, I really just being healthy. I mean, for
Yeah.
fight camps and whatnot, you really had to teach yourself because one, being a fighter is all fun and games, but the fight life also took my life almost. I got sick really bad as an amateur. I got sick with double pneumonia and I was hospitalized after one of my fights in Vegas. So that is probably why I got and I was already healthy before that, but now nutrition, food, it's something that's really dear to my heart. And who doesn't love good food? If you
Yeah,
can
yeah.
make something healthy and make it good, that's fun for me. Like I get to go home after training and I'm like, okay, well, I can eat this, this, and this, but how can we make it? So it's almost like for me and my husband. Now my husband's also like a cook. He comes in the kitchen and he starts cooking too, and I'm like, Master Chef JT. I was like, where did this come from? So for us, cooking is like a hobby. It's just we enjoy it.
All right. How do you see the contract winning performance happening, and what do you visualize?
Oh, I envision for sure me getting the contract. One, I'm an exciting fighter. I mean, I'm if you watch my fights, you know that there's going to be something exciting that I do. So for me, my husband constantly tells me, "Listen, you alone in your style is sorry, you alone. Hey, you alone, your style is entertaining. So for me, Cash, it I just need to go and perform. I just need to go out and be myself, and I know I'll get that contract. And I'm really looking forward to looking at Dana and telling him to sign that contract.
All right, one last thing. There's many different types of competitors in the sport. You've been through the amateur ranks. Now you're in the pros. Would you consider yourself right now a martial artist or a prize fighter?
Prize fighter meaning like a star?
Yeah, prize fighter meaning like you train to fight, make money. Martial artist is like, the money doesn't really matter. That type of mentality. You know what I mean? Because it changes throughout the years.
Yeah, that's actually a really nice question. So growing up, I've been in martial arts since I was 4 years old. Growing up, I've always had the mentality. I mean, I came from a taekwondo background since I could basically walk. So for me, definitely the martial artist side. But now that I'm 25 years old, been in the game for 20 plus years, I'm definitely looking at my career and I'm looking at the money side also. I'm like, I know what I can bring to the table. I know I can market myself well. And I know that I can be the type of fighter where people want to pay. So also I have family now. So for me, I'm looking at the opportunity side of this martial arts world. And martial arts will always be something that's dear to my heart as it's the only thing I've ever done my whole life. There was nothing else. Um, so I'm always going to be a martial artist, but now that I'm getting older, I look at the what's next after this because I can't fight forever. I want to be a mom one day, you know. I am a wife, so in the next 10 years, I want to be able to save my money. I want to be able to do everything I can in these next 10 years of fighting if I go that long for fighting. And I want to rack up all my money. I want to be the next Conor McGregor. Like I want to be the female version of it. I want to be myself. I want to be myself. I want to be a role model cuz there's the next generation that's looking up to us. I was a taekwondo instructor for many, many years at a young age. I was a taekwondo instructor from the age of 11 or even younger. So I was a volunteer instructor. I traveled the America to to schools and teaching about self-defense and respect and discipline, and that's something that's always going to be dear to my heart. But at the same time, fighting is not a career, it's an opportunity.
All right. Well, the opportunity comes August
Yeah.
18th, Contender Series, Las Vegas. Thank you so much for the time. It was incredible chatting with you, and hopefully you do go in there, perform to the best of your levels, and get that contract.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.